So it takes a leap of faith, you know, trusting the process, I think. But that doesn't excuse us to say, you know, just trust us. We'll get you there. You know, I think we want to try to answer the questions as we go. Did you sense that your group was, I mean, enthused, or, or just unsure?
Yeah, I think they were excited about being involved, but just unsure about exactly what we were doing and like what they were asking other, you know, because we're supposed to go out and engage these other groups and what we're supposed to kind of communicate that our goals are, I guess, when we engage.
Yeah.
Well, our goal right now is really just to get people interested in participating in the process, right? Inviting them to these meetings in March. That's really, we're not necessarily, there's nothing yet because we're developing the plan along with the community. So there's really no goals yet or you know, content to speak of. We're developing that. But what we really need them to do is just, you know, invite people to participate, attend a virtual meeting, go to the website, you know, fill out the online when we get that up. So that last 2 weeks of March, we're going to talk about that first round today, but that's really, it's really key. We just want to make sure that everyone in Manhattan knows it's a choice to get involved, and, you know how to get involved. So that's really the only charge right now. And I'll try to make sure that's clear tonight, Dustin. I appreciate the feedback on that, just to make sure that everyone is comfortable in the roles.
I'm going to admit.
Yep. Hello, everybody. We're just getting everyone connected here. Hang tight, and we'll get going here in 1 minute. Looks like most of you have your name, you know, on your thumbnail there, but if you don't have your name correctly attributed, if you could hover over your picture and use the 3 dots there and rename yourself, so that'll help us as we're having our discussions.
I'm still on.
Linda, I don't know where you are, but that doesn't look like the Kansas that I've read about.
Actually, I'm at Lake Tahoe. Thank you very much.
It's great for you to join us from there.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, you know, it was really hard for me to get away from my vacation and come to this meeting.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was one of the nicer trips we ever took. It was to Lake Tahoe. It was really nice.
Right.
All right, Jared, do we want another minute, or do you think we have most people that we're expecting that making it tonight?
I think I'll just continue to admit people in as they come in, but it looks like we're at about, if my math is right, probably about 26, 27 people.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go ahead and get started. I'll kick things off. I sent everyone a long email the other day with a lot of information and attachments that we're going to cover today. One of the things I did mention was we got some printouts here at City Hall. We have the rack card that it's basically an invitation to the March 22nd round of public engagement, directing people to the website and the dates that are available. Got about 1,000 of these, so don't be shy. Come by. I'll hand you out a stack so you can hand out to everyone you know. We have a bunch of these little business cards too with the logo and the website that you can hand out to people as well. So I'll give you those stacks that'll can be used throughout the process. Other than that, I do want to I mentioned in the email, I want to introduce our co-chairs, Dustin Dunce and Fanny Fang, who've volunteered to kind of help lead the process and, lead some possible subcommittees throughout this process. So Dustin, Fanny, if you'd like to reintroduce yourself from last time, if you have anything that you'd like to say, please go ahead. Look, Dustin, I just saw you unmuted, so you can go first.
Once again, I'm Dustin Dunce, counselor at Manhattan High School, in case you forgot, and I'm very honored to get to serve in the co-chair role, kind of see that maybe responsibility to try to help keep the group focused and moving forward and facilitate involvement and optimism. Maybe use some of my old math teaching skills there to keep the group going.
So my name is Fanny Fang. Fun fact, Dustin Dunce, I actually first knew him as Mr. Dunce because he was my school counselor at Manhattan High School. And so it feels very surreal to be in this position, to work with him, but I'm very honored, and I'm also very honored to work with every single one of you. In addition to what Dustin said, I want you to know that we are here to support you and to help us together move forward in this project and help our community move forward with this project.
Awesome, thank you. Well, we're glad to have you both on board and helping out. And again, thanks to everybody for filling out your personal outreach forms and getting together with your small groups. That was really important. Sarah's and Cyril and Jamie have compiled some of those responses. If you haven't been able to fill that out, please do send that to me here in the coming days so we can get a good feel for the groups that we're reaching. And the last thing I do want to introduce another staff member who's with us today, Zach Bayless. He's within our Parks and Recreation Department, works with our Arts and Humanities Advisory Boards and does a lot of our programming. He has a good feel for community outreach as well, and he wanted to get involved in the process. So I asked him to kind of join me during these meetings and maybe help facilitate in certain public meetings in other areas. So I wanted to welcome Zach.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right. I think with that, we'll start the meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, everyone, for joining. It's great to see you all again. I am going to share my screen, and we'll get started. So I think Jared sent out the the agenda to you all, so you have a little bit of a preview. But I'd like to just share that we are going to talk about this first round of engagement that's coming out later in March, and we're going to talk about some of the items that Jared sent out earlier in the email to you about the Publicity Toolkit items, and make sure it's really clear what we're asking you all to do over the next several weeks to get people interested and excited to get engaged and participate in this first round of public engagement. And then Jamie's going to lead us through a discussion. We're calling it Framing the Future, but if you remember back to the first meeting, we reviewed or shared with you all the sort of elements that make up a strategic plan, thinking about, starting at the top with the vision, mission, values, and goals. And so we really want to hear from you all tonight. That third item there is going to be, hearing from you all in discussion about with some key questions around what is your vision for the future of Manhattan, and then talking through mission and values and some goals for this process. And then we have a little bit of wrap up and next steps. We have a little bit more homework for you, mostly focused on spreading the word and getting people to participate, but we'll review all of that at the end of the meeting. So this first round of engagement, I just want to kind of start and talk about what we see as the purpose. So first we want to inform the public about the Crossroads MHK planning process, right? That there's a strategic planning process going on for the city. And we want to make sure they know that. We want to educate them a little bit about, the existing conditions and trends and other key foundational information. So some of the slides we shared with you all last meeting around the community assessment, we're going to be sharing, we want to be sharing some of that with the public as well, so they can make some informed, decisions and provide key input based upon that. And of course, the main part of this is to gather initial insight and ideas that will inform the plan. So this is the public's chance to have their say and share their ideas. And then we want to make a good impression so that people will want to stay engaged, right? We want to make the meetings fun and interactive, and so that they want to stay engaged throughout the process. So some objectives of our round one, as we were developing these, partly we started some of this, thinking last meeting with you all around messaging and things. But what we really want to make sure that we're doing as part of this first round is making it easy for people to participate. So you'll see when we get into the details that we're offering multiple days and times for these virtual meetings. We also want to offer multiple ways to engage. So I mentioned the virtual meetings, but also self-paced online, meeting in a box, and some limited in-person viewing of the virtual meetings as well. We're going to go over all of that in a little bit more detail. We want to ensure safe and productive engagement given the current and ongoing pandemic. So while I think we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, we're not through the pandemic yet. So we want to, ensure that we're being safe and productive. And we want to offer different types of input activities. And we'll do that through the series of different formats and activities, but survey questions, small group discussion, open-ended comments and things, so that people can engage in a variety of different ways. So the round one engagement overview, basically think of it as a time period, the last 2 weeks of March. So starting March 22nd through April 2nd with different things happening. We're focusing on the virtual meetings in that week of March 22nd. That's really important. But we'll have self-paced online activities going on that whole time. The website will be live with activities for them to participate in. And we'll also have the meeting in a box opportunities for you all, which we'll talk a little bit more about as it gets closer to that, and then some limited in-person viewing. So it's really important to think of this as a round. So for the virtual meetings, they'll all be the same format. We're offering a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so different days of the week, and we're offering some different times. So a lunch hour meeting, so people can maybe take a break at work and participate during the workday. We're doing an early morning, kind of a breakfast before work time slot. And then we have 2 evenings, sort of an earlier evening and a later evening on the Wednesday and Thursday for folks who maybe need to get through, dinner and bedtime with the kids and participate. So we're hoping that we talked through that with, as a team, and decided that would be a really good opportunity to allow a lot of different people hopefully to participate. So that's one way people can get involved. They can attend a virtual meeting and we'll be having a variety of activities during those meetings. The other way they can get involved is to get online to the project website, and I call it self-paced online activities. Again, it'll be the same questions that will be same kind of engagement, same questions that we'll be doing during the virtual meetings, but people maybe can't attend one of the virtual meetings, but they can get on in their own time and do the activity on the project website. The meeting in a box is really an opportunity for you all to help us reach out to some of those demographic groups that you listed on your forms, right? So if you've got a group of people that you can meet virtually or in person if you're comfortable, maybe you come coworkers, get them around a lunch hour, everyone brings their own lunch, and you can share and do this, again, the same activities, the same questionnaires and things that we're going to be doing in the virtual, that you can collect those with a small group. So we'll be looking to offer that as well. And then we're working with Jared to figure out the details of this. But right now, the message is really, if folks don't have access to the internet, don't have technology in their home, that we will offer some limited in-person viewing opportunities for the virtual meeting. So there's either they come to the city building or maybe a branch library. And again, with safety precautions, they could view one of the virtual meetings or get on a computer at the library and participate in the online activities. So we're really trying to be, I hope you can appreciate that we're trying to be accessible to people and offer a variety of ways for people to get engaged at the end of March as part of this first round. I've got a few more slides, but I'm gonna stop there and see if anyone has any questions at this point.
Sarah, I have a question. What considerations have been made about language accessibility? We do have a good sized Spanish speaking population here, and then there's also a good population of Chinese Mandarin speakers as well. So I just wanted to see if if there's a possibility we can get services like that for these meetings.
No, that's a good thought. And we've been looking into how we can, there's some, we're looking into the back end of the website to see if we can offer some translation on the website so people could go in and view the online activities in their own language. It's not quite as straightforward as we were hoping, but we are looking into that, and we're hoping we can offer that. And I think your feedback is good, because, if we only can, offer two, if it's, Spanish and Mandarin, if that's the two that are most prominent, then we can try to focus on that. Jared, I don't know what, we haven't talked about this in specifics, but what does the city do now for accommodating Spanish or other languages?
I'd have to reach out to our human resources department. We do offer that on all of our public meeting agendas. If a certain person needs that, they call us and we try and accommodate them. It doesn't happen very often with city commission meetings. So I'd have to reach out and see how we could facilitate that from an in-person or within a virtual meeting.
Yeah, one other idea, and we've done this before as well, is to translate all the materials. So the survey questions, and get it translated and create a meeting in a box that's specifically for those languages. And then if we've got people who can be the messenger or, distributing those to those populations, that's another way. So let us work on that a little bit, Fanny, and we'll see what we can do.
All right, thank you.
So for the virtual meetings, we will be utilizing the Zoom online meeting platform. So it's, just like what we're using here tonight, which allows us to, do some different things. We can do breakouts and things. So we're planning a 1-hour agenda that will include an overview of the process, highlights of the environmental scan, as I mentioned. We would like to do a breakout session, small group discussions, which we're going to talk a little bit more about this committee's support on that. And helping us host those small group sessions. And then we would like to do some real time, what we're calling audience polling, using a software called Mentimeter. And that's where people can get on their smartphone or their tablet, and they can answer questions, and it populates a real time web browser page that everyone can see that answers them. Maybe you participate in some of that. It's pretty fun. It's a great way to get some, input from folks as well. So I think what we're trying to offer is, getting some concentrated feedback in the sense of like a survey type questions, but also some more open-ended discussion with the breakout sessions around some critical questions. So we're going to kind of be balancing that. So of the 1 hour, only the first, 15 minutes or so would really be us talking to people, talking to them, giving some foundation and the rest of the time will be spent hearing from them and gathering that input. So we just launched, the RSVPs are on the website. The links are on the website to get, there's a link to sign up for the meeting, to get the meeting link, and to RSVP for each of these meetings now. It's up on the project website. I know we're still ramping up, and you all haven't really dug in and done your work yet. We're going to be kind of launching you tonight. So we're hoping this goes up, but we really want to push these numbers up so we can get as many people as possible registered and hopefully attending the meeting. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I wanted to just let you know that, the meetings are being advertised, and this is where we are with the RSVPs.
Sir, do you want the committee to RSVP to these, or how do you want to handle that?
No, we're going to talk about that later, but we're actually going to get everybody's availability first to see when they can help us with some of the breakout sessions. But then you all should also, attend a session as well and as a participant. So we can talk a little bit more about that, but
we'll monitor that a little too, Sarah. Just, we can't have a majority of the group at one meeting, or it would be an open meeting, which would. So
yes. Yeah. Thank you, Jared.
I hope all of you don't pick the lunch hour one or something, but if we do, then we'll reach out and ask you to pick another time. So flip a coin or something to pick another time.
Yeah, that's good, Jared. Thank you for that. Okay, so Jared sent out a number of resources to you all earlier this week. What we're calling is the Publicity Toolkit. And in there, there was a sort of overview document that gives you a little explanation of each item. But I wanted to just run through these each now and make sure you guys have any questions. So, the first item was a digital PDF of that, engagement invitation. So that rat card that, yes, that one right there. Thank you, Jared. That rat card, we gave you a PDF version so that you could attach it to an email or put it in a newsletter or something if you have the opportunity. But there also are hard copies available. A few of you I know have stopped in and picked them up from Jared. So that's great. So you can hand them out to folks in your circles. We've also included the same information that's on the rat card in a flyer and poster, 8.5 by 11, 11 by 17. And Jared has offered to print those for you all. So if you have a place to hang up or hand out, flyers or hang up a poster, let Jared know. He can do some prints for you and you can pick those up as well. There's also a program or like bulletin insert, which is basically like the same information, but on two on a page. You can cut it in half and stick it inside a church bulletin or a different other kind of program bulletin. So that's really handy. We also have the printed business cards, which Jared mentioned are available. I went ahead and included there you go. Nice little simple thing to hand out that just has the URL on there so people can get to the project website. And then from there, they can sign up for the meetings and get information. I went ahead and included a digital version of that just so y'all could see what it looks like. There may be an application where you want to attach that or do something. I think mostly you'll be using it in the print version. There is an FAQ document, which are the same FAQs that are on the website, but just kind of handy in case someone asks you a question. It's a good handy reference guide. We do have the letter to the editor instructions. We talked a little bit about some of the ways we can get the word out last meeting, and the local newspaper there. They have a very easy online portal. You can submit a letter to the editor. We found that people really people read those in the community, and they're, again, more likely to maybe participate if they see somebody that they know or trust, writing in about this. So that's just another way to get the word out. We provided some instructions and also a little template. You can personalize the sort of top part of the letter, and then the bottom has some stock language that you can use, and it has the meetings information in there on the website. And then someone asked, I don't remember who it was, but somebody asked for the elevator speech, a little short blurb that can be put into, emails or newsletters. So we've provided that. We've also provided some sample social media posts. You all who are on social media are active. I'm sure you can write your own posts as well, but we want to make it easy. So there are some social media posts there. And we also included an email signature. If you're in a position to sort of add that to the bottom of your email when you're sending emails out, it's another way to just let people know about the opportunity. And then we've included the logo and the logo guide. So again, if you've got the opportunity to put a logo on something or into a newsletter, the logo guide, excuse me, just provides some information about the colors and different things. So if you're trying to create something kind of branded, we want to make sure you guys had the tools if you need that. So these resources are all just meant for you all to have common language, common tools to do this outreach work. The purpose of this is just simply to invite people to participate in this first round of engagement. Come to a virtual meeting, go online and fill out the online survey when it opens on March 22nd. Get involved, invite them to a meeting in a box that you might host, either virtually or in person. So we really, at this point, we're developing the plan, right? There's no goals yet. We're not asking you to try to get people to support something yet. We're just asking you to support the process and get people involved. It's a simple invitation right now. So I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at the toolkit yet, or if you have any questions, but I'll pause here and see if you have any questions about the toolkit resources.
Sarah, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
So I spoke with some of the groups that I'm a part of, and some of them are already booked out through April and May, and we're asking about June. Is that going to be too late of an opportunity for them to start hearing about this? And what would you suggest in that situation?
You mean to go into a meeting or something and have some airtime with them? Yeah. Well, no, I think, so for this first round, I think if this first round is going to be happening in the last part of March, right? But we are going to have another round in May. So I think we haven't quite set those dates yet, but sometime the first week of May, we want to make sure we get it before the K-State students are gone for the summer break. So I would encourage you, again, if you can't get airtime with them or get into, if things are booked up from a distribution standpoint, maybe there's at least something an email that can be sent out or something minor, just so people know that they can go to the website and get involved on their own time, even if you can't do something formally. But again, it's really important. This first round is taking place basically the last 2 weeks of March. So we do want to make sure we catch as many people as possible to know about this first round. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Okay, so to recap, what we need you to do over the next several weeks is to utilize the toolkit to reach out to your networks and refer to your outreach commitment worksheets. I'm going to review some of that. I was very impressed with all of your when we put everything together, it's a very impressive list of what you all committed to helping with. We also Jared sent out what we're calling the outreach tracking form. This is a form that we're asking you to just record, like, as you reach out to folks, like if you send an email or if you got something in a newsletter, or if you shared something at a meeting, and told people about it, just mark it down simply, what you did, who the group was. I think I may ask for the date. We're just asking for that because we really want to compile all of your efforts together and be able to really share this when we get through the end of this first round. So again, just keep that form handy, fill it out as you go, and then you can email them to Jared, towards the end of March. So again, the next few weeks are critical to spreading the word about this first engagement opportunity. And so, like, time is of the essence. This is the time. Even, we've been, like, the press release went out, the website's there, we've done some soft launch, but this is really these couple weeks leading up to the first round here are critical for ramping up all the outreach and the engagement. So we really need to work at that. So we asked you all in your small groups to fill out that commitment form, and part of that was to discuss and talk about the hard to reach groups. So this is a really, this is what we heard when we put everything together. And several of you may have shared, similar groups, but we have 32 different groups. So again, we're going to share this PowerPoint deck with you all after, so you can see what everybody else, I know you know what you all filled out, but you can see what everybody else is saying in the bigger picture. But be mindful of these groups, be mindful, besides who you're reaching out to, who you've committed to, take a look at this list here and think and see, oh, how can I reach out to, renters or different neighborhoods or people who are new to town or things like that are listed here. So just want to make everyone aware that we've got a nice list here of folks that we want to make sure that we're including in this, in this messaging and inviting into the first round. Now this, I was particularly impressed with. You all should give yourself a big pat on the back. I think this is the most groups I've ever had identified when we've asked committees to sort of, think about this. So there's 90 plus community groups identified that you all committed to. Even if 5 or 10 of these from each of these groups participate, we'll have 1,000 people participating in this first round, which would be great. So again, we combined some. There was a bunch of different K-State affiliations, groups, committees, things like that. I'm going to just go through these really quickly just so you can see. There's obvious places of worship. We kind of consolidated those and listed a few of those. Different ethnic communities. And then here's the Rotary and kind of other organizations. So we'll send this out, so you guys can kind of see the bigger picture beyond just what you've committed to. But this is really impressive. And, like I said, we need you now to, spread the word, get people excited about getting involved through these different groups. This is a great list. Okay, does anybody have any question before we switch gears? Does anybody have any questions about, what your charge is the next couple of weeks, inviting people into the process, inviting them to attend a virtual meeting? Any questions or comments on that?
Hey, Jared, it's Phil Maddox. I'm gonna ask a question now that I've asked 2 or 3 times, and if you've addressed it, or as we look at those groups, tell me how we're dealing with Pot County and the rest of the city. I keep asking the question, but I don't get an answer. And 99% of what I just saw is Riley County, not Pot County. But we all know on this, everybody that's on this video, certainly or Zoom, certainly knows what's going on from the city's perspective, whether it be mask or whatever the case may be, taxes and so on and so forth. How are we dealing with Pot County here? Because I certainly didn't see any representation there.
When you say, Phil, when you say dealing with Pot County, do you mean outreach to get them involved in the process?
Well, when I use the county, it's a very generic term, but I'm really talking about Manhattan, that part of the city that's on that side of the
Blue Township? Yeah, so I mean, anyone within that area is allowed to participate in this process. There's no barriers to whether or not they can log in to the website and take the surveys and register for the events. You know, we're pretty clear on that on the website, that you don't have to be a resident. You can work in Manhattan. You can live near Manhattan if you want to get involved in those areas. So if that's the question you're kind of asking from how are we being inclusive of anyone who doesn't live technically within city limits,
well, no, that's not the question. It's people that do live in the city limits and or are impacted by the city limits from the perspective that are in Pot County. So if you look at that list of all those engagement, various 90 plus groups that Sarah just showed, I can't speak for 100% of them. There's probably 100% of them that are Riley County side of the house. That's how are we engaging on the other side of, you know, the other side of the city, if you will, since the city is split.
well, I mean, we're working with the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. They have people from both sides of the county who are members of that we're using them as a medium to reach out to. USC 383 is another example where we are, you know, reaching out to faculty and hopefully students and staff within 383 and those families who may or may not live on the Riley County side. Kansas State University would be another similar one where we're reaching out to those groups who may or may not live in Manhattan city limits.
So, say when you use the example of 383, are we engaging the other USDs, i.e. the ones that are over with Rock Creek or maybe up to Randolph and so on and so forth? Are those being engaged?
No. Not in a specific manner as it relates to the strategic planning process for the city.
Seems like we had all the issues that are happening lately from the city council's perspective have indeed, whether it be tax side of the house or other, you know, the mask and everything else. I mean, just look what happened on Tuesday with the mask discussion. The big discussion was there is no ordinance in Pot County. So how are we dealing with, it was in the paper today, Ned Seaton, about how to deal, you know, with the Walmarts and the Aldis and the other side. That's why I bring up the question. It's going to come up sooner or later. And as I read the list, almost everything is Riley County. So you use example 383. There's 3-4 other USDs as an example.
So Phil, I'm curious so when I'm looking at this, I do see overlap between Riley County and Potawatomi County. So what are some organizations that you are seeing that's missing here that isn't represented?
Well, certainly the business side of the house. Now, Jared answered the question, if indeed the Chamber of Commerce is involved with the economic, I'll just use this example, economic development, those questions are going to come up, I would guess. There's things like the restaurants that are on here, number 87 that happens to be on our screen, but there's nothing about, you know, the big box stores, for lack of a better term. I mean, you know, when you talk about Walmart, you're talking, you know, probably one of the biggest places in town, obviously. The SSAB, for example, since I used to be on it, is everything that is involved purely Manhattan. And say Manhattan, you must live in the city limits of Manhattan. So anyway, it's going to probably come up point. Maybe Chamber versus a good example. I thought USD's was probably a better example, because Jared said 383, but there are at least 4 to 5 other USDs that are involved as far as the city of Manhattan's concerned.
Okay, well, I appreciate that feedback, and we can, again, I think, try to keep that in mind. And if there are groups that you think, we need to be more focused on to make sure we're bringing in that side of the city, then, let us know. We did have a really good external stakeholder meeting with the chamber earlier this week, and they are on board to help, get their members, spread the word through their members to get involved. And we have dates set now for the school district and K-State as well. And we're working on getting something set up with some of the social service organizations. So there may be some overlap or some ways we can make sure, but we'll be more mindful of that as we were meeting with these other groups to make sure we're being inclusive. Okay.
I'm sorry, Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Dominique.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Just a quick point of clarification there. I mean, if I'm understanding the thrust that you're bringing to the table, Phil, it sounds like there's concern about how cross county lines were impacting one another, and making sure that individuals in other counties have some type of voice in this process. So it's both a statement and a question. I guess I was under the impression that when we met with our small groups, we were asked to, that the activity was really to get us to identify hard to reach and hard to engage populations within the community. Is that accurate, or is that not accurate?
Yeah, no, there was 2 parts to that. One was getting you all thinking about those hard to reach groups so that we're mindful of them, so that, we can get beyond the usual folks who, know how to get involved and are, maybe get involved usually in different city initiatives. So there was that component. And then I think with that lens, thinking about that, we wanted you to think about the networks that you're connected to. It doesn't have to be hard to reach. There could just be things like through your workplace or through different groups and church groups or whatever. So it wasn't that we're only focused on the hard to reach. We want to make sure that they were given some special attention and being intentional about that. But when we ask you to think about your networks and who you're connected to and which groups you're connected to, that's really your personal networks, whether that's through your kid's school or a church or a HOA or what have you. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
It absolutely does. I think that I can't speak for everybody in my group, but I know that when we engaged in that activity, I certainly was focused not only on, as you said, that second component, which organizations and individuals that I was connected to that I could obviously share this information with to try to get engaged. But I guess I was working in understanding that we were really trying to focus on those difficult to reach and or difficult to engage populations and individuals so that this process could be inherently equitable. So going back to the question and comment that you made, Phil, I guess I'm just not understanding, do we really need to focus on community entities that are like corporate entities, for instance? I mean, we all know that, for instance, the chamber has a long held investment in community planning and very much has their voice already at the table. And then, certainly there's plenty of other large entities within the community across different counties that have long been at the table and are always in the decision-making process. So I guess it's just me trying to get clear again with some of the fundamental pieces of this initiative in itself, which is how do we make sure that we're equitably engaging members of the community that typically don't have their voices heard, so that as many people can be a part of that decision-making process as an act of democracy, right?
Yes, no, that's exactly right. We want everybody in the community who cares about Manhattan to be involved, and we want to be intentional about some of those groups that maybe, like you said, maybe harder to reach or harder to get engaged, put a little bit extra effort on that so that we can, make sure that we're reaching them. So yeah, that's exactly it. Okay. Anything else on the outreach piece, and what we need you all to do over the next several weeks? Okay, great. So I'm gonna ask Jamie to jump in here and set us up for some discussion. Again, this will be a little bit of review from the last meeting because we introduced these elements and he kind of walked you all through them, but we're gonna get some feedback from you all on these different components of the strategic plan.
Thanks, Sarah. And before we get into this, Sarah, could you go back to the previous one just for a minute?
Yeah.
I just feel the need to acknowledge that, this format is not ideal. And I just ask your understanding of it as you go through, because I know, from some of the questions, you are clearly trying to understand the roles and make sure this process is successful. And we want to as well, but in an ideal world we'd be together, and I hope that happens. But until then, we are going to use this, and we're going to use it without some of its key features like a chat box or breaking into small groups. It's just the rules we have to adhere to. The other thing I'd like to say is that it is not our intention to invite you to these meetings and talk at you the whole time. I've been on plenty of committee meetings myself, and that is not really a very productive thing. So we want to have a discussion. We want you to feel comfortable like sharing things with us or asking things. If you don't feel like it in the meeting, but you want us to know something, we certainly would like to. Several of you gave us some feedback, helpful feedback after the last meeting in a follow-up, email. So, you can take some notes, have some questions. If you don't want to put them out here, you can send them to us directly, but we do want to know your insight and perspective on this work. So we're going to talk about some of the structuring of this strategic plan, and what we see it happening from the general to the specific. And the city government has some language around some of these things, some they don't. And so we want to have a conversation with you about what should be in some of these things or not for, the future Manhattan that is important to you. So we're going to talk about each one of these: the vision, the mission, the values, and the goals. Ultimately, there'll be a plan that has all of these recommended with your input and support. And these will be the key ingredients to developing more specific actions, the projects, policies, and programs. So even though we've not engaged the community yet, we wanted to get some of your insight about these aspects. So we're going to start with the vision. And I'm guessing that many of you, if not all of you, have been involved in organizations or efforts that have, crafted a vision and, have goals. And we know that they're not always defined the same way, but we need a consistent way that we talk about these things. So for us, we think about the vision here being at the highest level, and therefore it's the most general expression, of the future. It doesn't say when something's going to be done, how it's going to be, done, who's going to do it. It's really just like, this is the vision. We think that the vision should, reflect in some way the community's values, and it sets the tone for more specific policy development, that you have. We've seen vision statements that are like, 3 words, and we've seen them where they're like, 53 words. We lean on getting a more succinct vision and then supporting you with others. But at some point we'll talk about, what is reasonable in terms of what that looks like. So Sarah, if you're going to go to so we'd like you to pause here for 2 or 3 minutes, jot down some thoughts about the future of Manhattan. we want you to think about it, you know, not tomorrow when you wake up, but think about it out 10, 15, even a generation, 20 years into the future. Think about what it'll look like. Think about what it'll feel like. Think about what government will be doing or what government won't be doing at that point. Economically, how's it doing? Is the community prosperous? But think about it. Think about what you'll be doing, how you'll be getting around, how you'll be living. Children that you may or may not have now, grandchildren that you may or may not have. What will this place be like? And therefore, what's the vision for it to be realized? So just take another couple minutes, and then we'll ask for some responses. And Sarah, when we're doing this discussion, maybe we could pull down the slides and just get as many people in the view as possible.
Yep.
Oh, good, you're all still here. Just take another minute. And obviously, when we're doing this, you still have some more time. If something comes to you once we start, you can certainly jot that down. So you don't have to put it into any coherent statement. If there are just some key words that come to mind, you know, that would be good enough for us. If anybody has it in a well-defined, beautiful, structured sentence, we'd take that. But you can just give us the essence tonight. And I'd really appreciate it if we could do this succinctly. You know, like I don't want anybody to feel like they have to justify their vision, right? Because it's your vision. But also the practicality of, you know, going around this, it would be difficult if we all feel the need to make our case. We just really want to know what it is. And so I'd appreciate if you could do that. So because this might be more orderly, I think I'm going to call on you, and you can pass if you don't have anything that you want to share or you don't have anything yet. But I'm going to call on Dominique. You're first up here on my array. Do you have some key words about your vision for the future of Manhattan?
I'm a slow processor, so I'm a little behind Jamie. But what I have so far, I think I would say that my vision is, I don't really have it in keywords, but my vision is that this type of community-driven strategic planning would be a springboard toward the renewal, as I said, of a political culture in Manhattan where residents truly serve as democratic agents. And that's not maybe as long-term as you were hoping for, but I think that if this could be a springboard toward that, then there's a lot of hope, I guess, to continuing or to continue to nurture, foster that kind of political culture.
Great. No, it was very important there. Thanks, Dominique. Okay, I have somebody here that's under the name of MLK Art. Because someone, they may not even know their MLK Art.
I think that's Felicia.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Felicia.
You can hear me now? I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. I'm Felicia. What I see as far as 10, 15 years from now, with many things considered, the phrase that catches me is enrichment for the community. You know, I feel that, of course, you know, there's going to be evolution as the city grows on its natural own, you know, and as more perspectives and diversity will have its demand to be relevant in our equation of the city itself. I believe that it's important to bring enrichment of that, because even though it may be different, it may be a fresh approach or what have you, to me, it still could be a fortified situation that will build up the city.
Yeah.
That even includes with, different people meeting, different cultures. Like in my case, it's the arts. I see many facets that I could, implement that example in the line of artistry. Mm-hmm. And with that being said, and a lot of people that I know and that kind of thing, it really could present, a very good argument. Mm-hmm. That would be nothing but an encouragement for the community. So,
good.
If that answers your
question. We got it. And Sarah and Cyril are both taking notes, capturing all of this good thought. So, Jeff, do you have something?
Yeah. So I came up with Prospering because I kind of just looked at the recent population data of Manhattan, and it's increased about 16% even since 2000. So I feel like there's a lot of evidence with the growing population of cities that usually tend to have higher levels of either education or anything along that basis. So I feel like Prospering is a solid word to use for that.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Mike?
Here I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, my vision is a community with its own identity that is safe, affordable, and truly diverse.
Right. Now there's a succinct vision statement right there. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Jessica?
All right. I probably would say that I looked at it. So 20 years would be 2041. I guess I would say I would be hoping that the barrier of entry into making the Manhattan area community your own wouldn't be as long as it takes. So there would be entry points that are welcoming, that you don't have to know someone or have family to be able to feel like you're part of the community. I would say that people would want to live here and see a future and a growth here, that it doesn't have to be a place where you have to know and have a really tight connection to start a business or, different opportunities to work from home, but live in Manhattan because it's a really great place to be. More amenities so that, those of us who identify people of color don't have to go to Kansas City or Wichita for services, that there's some incentives from the city to have another location in Manhattan, even though it's not a Topeka or whatever. And then just probably more innovation for, the area and just what that looks like with just an collective of people. And then my final thing would be an intentionality to preserve the history or share or have a platform of the rich history in the area so that everyone knows what this space has been from the past.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. You may have just written the strategic plan. Stacia?
Hi. I think one of my goals for the future would be just to be able to maintain the good relationship that the university has with the town, because I know that's such a big draw for so many students as to why they want to come here, is because of how welcoming this community is and all the resources that it has. And so I think just continuing to make that a good relationship.
Great. Thank you, Stacia. Fanny?
My vision for the city of Manhattan is that it embraces and financially supports diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives so that we can build a sustainable local economy that is truly for all.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Fanny. Great. Pat?
I just had a few different thoughts that I wrote down. I'd like us to be focused on progress. Let's pick things that we can do that we know we can make progress on, because it always feels good when you make a little progress, right?
Right.
And then I would love to see the city also through that make sure that we're fiscally responsible and not carry more debt than we could manage, say, if a pandemic happened again. Put ourselves in a financially good place, and then also make sure that we're caring for and about the people in our community who are less fortunate or underserved, and that we are paying attention to those, whether they come to the table or not. We know that those people will exist in our community, so let's make sure we keep a space for them.
Great. Thank you very much, Pat. Anne, you're up.
Okay, I have a greater focus on diverse cultural events, community festivals, having a thriving local business culture, parks and other free or low-cost activities, secular low-income assistance, affordable housing, and ample mental health resources.
Great, thank you, Anne. Jack?
I was to kind of echo, I like Manhattan to keep growing, but still keep that small town feel and have activities that everyone can be included in, no matter what income group they're in or ethnicity or anything like that. Just want to see become an all-inclusive community.
That's great. Thank you, Jack. Justin?
Of course, I'd follow Jack, who said pretty much exactly what I was planning on saying. Maintaining that small town feel that everyone loves about Manhattan. Royan inevitably is going to get much larger in the next 20 years, and probably split into 2 high schools, which presents some other problems. But try to maintain that cohesive community, maybe through programs that can bring people together like that.
Thank you, Dustin. Linda, can you come off the lake for a bit?
I guess I could come in for a minute. Suggestions that I have are very similar to what others have said. I think about embracing diversity, providing opportunities for everyone to thrive in the community, and intentionality of growth that allows us to continue to grow but preserves the past at the same time. And I need to say goodbye. I've got a family commitment that's come up, so I'm going to head out of here. Thank you so much for letting me participate tonight, and now I'm going back to the lake. I'll see you all next time.
Thanks, Linda. Daphne?
Yeah, so I'm going to give a little bit of my own lens here, but I work in public transit, and I think I'd love to see Manhattan continue to be more accessible and continue to be innovative and finding ways to progress that. And then also just to be a welcoming and vibrant community so that people feel like they don't have to fit into a certain mold in order to stay here or to live here.
Great. Thank you, Daphne. Brett?
Yeah, I identified some keywords that have come up often already. Thriving, innovative, diverse, and welcoming. Diverse and welcoming, not just to different populations, obviously, but to different types of industries and businesses that we want to attract, provide quality jobs. And then also just a highly engaged citizenry with city government and the decision-making process so that people have ownership in the decisions that are being made.
Super. Thanks, Brett. Sarah?
Yeah. So my kind of like keywords or like key sentence, more like a community contributing to the safety of one another and also contributing to societal connection that celebrates diversity, especially as a college student.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Josh?
Yeah, I want Manhattan to be a magnetic community that attracts and retains residents from across the country, because we're known all over as a welcoming and innovative community where everyone can grow as community members, creatives, social agents, professionals, and family members.
Great. That's an unusual word, but I get it. Magnetic. Kara? Is that Kara?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
I just came up with a few keywords. Some of them have already been said: creative, innovative, healthy, forward-thinking, transparent, accountable, responsive, and affordable.
Great words. Mickey?
Yeah, I have prosperous, growing, friendly, diverse, clean, a good connection continuing between the city and KSU, and then lots of community spaces and gatherings and activities.
Great. Thank you, Mickey. Thomas?
I'm not sure what more wisdom I can add that's not already been shared. I have a strong social safety net for vulnerable and underserved community members, vibrant arts community, a community that supports and inspires creative entrepreneurial opportunities to thrive, and then a diverse and inclusive welcoming community that's oriented towards caring for each other.
Super. You're on the writing committee now, Thomas. Maureen?
Good evening. Most everything I had written down has pretty much already been said multiple times. I have a mentor who says that if people don't feel safe, then they don't feel like they're at home.
Mm-hmm.
So Manhattan needs to feel safe, not from a policing point of view, but from I can walk down the street and no matter what my skin is, no matter what my identity is, and feel safe to be. And I can have a home that I feel safe to stay in, to sleep in at night. I'm not afraid it's gonna blow up or whatever. So safety and forward thinking are probably the two main things.
Okay. Great, thanks, Maureen. I think that notion, the way you define safety, I don't know that we've heard that, but it's a really nice sentiment about feeling like you belong. Caleb?
As I said, diverse, safe, affordable, and free of excessive tax burden.
Free of excessive tax burden, is that what you said?
Yes.
Great, thanks, Caleb. Greg?
I think the one thing that I would really like to see from the city as an entity is what we're doing now is a strategic focus on what comes next. And I think one of the things that has limited citizen engagement to this point is they've done a lot of things over the last decade, but none of it's flowed into any sort of plan. It's just kind of, we need this, so we're going to pass this tax issue or do this thing. And so with military and students in this community, I think a lot of people come in and don't quite understand what is happening or what happened even a year prior. So they see their taxes going up and don't necessarily see the services coming as a result of that, just from how some of the planning has been done.
Thank you, Greg. Sam?
Yeah, I think a lot of what I was thinking has kind of been said already, but renewable, sustainable, hospitable, livable are kind of some words that come to mind about how to make Manhattan a little bit better.
Great, thanks, Sam. Lee?
Yeah, a lot of the phrases have already been said, but I think why I was most interested in this project is I feel like there's the old saying, plan your work and work your plan. And I don't feel like the city has really had a definitive guide to measure return on investment. We do a lot of projects, we do a lot of spending. A lot of those projects are good projects, but what are we getting for that? Is that the right use of our money? I think this community does a good job, as evidenced by the variety of perspectives, even on this Zoom, of trying to have voices at the table to make sure that perspectives are being heard. But we need a more collaborative process, which I believe this will ultimately net. And then once we move forward, we need to measure, are we actually having success with those, and not be afraid to change course as, as the world around us changes. I think the pandemic is a great example of, there's a lot of great things about Manhattan that make it appealing to live and raise families in. And we're no longer directly tied to place because of where we work, especially as we move to more and more remote work opportunities. And so as we think about 20 years from now, we may not even, some of these roads that we're building may not even be necessary, depending on, what transit looks like. So just keeping in mind a measurement of success with the plan.
Great. Thank you very much. So Phil?
Well, I'm not sure I can add much. A couple of word changes, maybe.
Yeah.
And they are word changes, but a vibrant community that people choose to live. The
Choose.
word there that I'm adding is the word choose to live. Not only live, but work, learn, and play. I mean, so you got all these words that come into that. But then I think it becomes a key part that goes with that people are, i.e. residents, are proud to live here. And then we want to share our quality of life because of who we are, not only because of K-State. Sorry about that. That was bad timing. That people want to share as residents, but we also want to be able to share with our visitors because of K-State, whether it be the athletic program or the arts and various other things, but then also what the military brings to the community. So there's a sharing piece. There's not only inside the community, but outside the community.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Did I miss anyone? You shifted on my screen a couple of times. I'm trying to keep track, but anybody that we missed?
I was just going to say, MLK Art, I believe you left your microphone on.
Well, I will never get this all down pat about when to mute, when not to mute. So we'll all be gentle with each other as we do this. At least I'm asking for it. So there were a lot of great words that you generated, a lot of great sentiments. There was some commonality, and there were a few unique things. So we're gonna make a summary of these, the key themes, and we'll be inserting them back into the process. What I would like you to do now, though, is if, based on what you just heard, how you were feeling, but you heard from, your other committee members, one of the critical ways to deliver this vision is local government. There's clearly private investment, there's not-for-profits, there's institutions, but the primary one for a lot of what you're talking about is leadership and management from the city government. So they have a mission. The city has a mission right now, but this effort needs a mission, right? If you have a vision, what's the mission in order to get it? So Sarah, could you want to maybe pull up the slides for a couple of minutes here? So, the definition that we're using for a mission is, a statement that explains in simple and concise terms its purpose for being. The mission. Simple and concise terms, its purpose or purposes for being. Now, Sarah, you go to the next slide. This is the current mission statement for the city of Manhattan. Sustaining order and protecting public safety, promote public health, preserve the built environment, enhance economic vitality. And part of the mission is to support a regional community in which individuals and families develop and thrive. So there's a note at the bottom that this was actually created 30 years ago by a former city manager, and it was done, really inside City Hall. So we're not going to, unless somebody just just wants to beg for it. We're not going to go around each of you individually, but we'd love for those of you that have a reaction to this statement, and I think the reactions, I think we'd be interested in any of your reactions, but, based on what you were just thinking a minutes ago, is this mission adequate for delivering that vision? Are there things in here that you don't think belong? Let's not worry so much about what's missing, because I think everything you shared before is something that should be considered to develop. But is there something missing in here, something that's confusing? So if you want to, raise your hand or jump in here, but we'd like to have some reactions to the current mission. That this is what tomorrow morning, this is what, Jared and his colleagues are going to get up, and this is their mission. We're going to develop new budgets based on the mission. Reactions, anybody?
Preserve.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lee's got his hand up. I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks, Ann. Lee, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things I think leads to frustration and maybe general distrust with government is, as citizens, we forget that different local entities do different things. So the immediate thing that jumps out is it's the Riley County Police Department's responsibility to sustain order and do public safety. That's not the city, city taxpayers pay for that, but that's not really the responsibility of the city of Manhattan.
Right.
So that jumps out immediately.
Okay, that's good. Pat?
When I was listening to you go through that, just in my mind real quick, this popped out to me. When I think of a mission, when you think about like what should the city do for you, I just thought they should serve its citizens, preserve the community, and grow the community.
Great. Thank you, Pat. Josh?
Yeah, I kind of noticed the preserve the built environment phrase there, because the first thing that I think it questions is, what about the non-built environment? We are right on the Kansas River. What about the natural environment? But also, by preserving the built environment, the mission of the city is not to enhance the built environment or to adapt the built environment to changing conditions or to increase accessibility, et cetera. So it's very retrospective instead of being a progressive approach to that built environment.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation, Josh. Ann, did you have something, or are you just trying to coach me a minute ago?
No, sorry. I forgot Zoom has a raise hand feature. That's a thing it does. Yeah. I don't Zoom much. I just also thought preserve the built environment was incredibly limiting. I understand they need to maintain infrastructure, but it doesn't leave any room for growth.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else comments? I don't see any other hands right now.
I've got Daphne.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think overall when a person views a mission statement, I'm not sure how many people are going on and looking at the mission statement for a city, but if you do see it, you want to feel good about it. And this just kind of leaves a bland blanket statement feeling. There's not a lot that you're really gonna feel emotionally attached to. And when you're a community member, I feel like that's important.
I think that's also a good observation, Daphne. And I think that puts pressure on all of us when we draft a new one, right? Is it structured in a way that gets the substance, but also can give people confidence and a sense that this is really, really special? We don't mind the pressure. I don't think you do either. Other comments or questions, Kara?
So I'm going to say something that I like about this current mission statement. I like the second half. The city supports a regional community in which individuals and families develop and thrive. I like that regional component to it, because we are more than just the city of Manhattan. We are part of the Flint Hills region as a whole. And I think working with our neighbors is something that's become a strength for our city.
Oh, I appreciate the positive reaction. I mean, it's perfectly fine. And when I looked at it, I was in the more critical mode the first time, but I appreciate that we can find things in there that we think still have value.
Thomas, I saw you raise your hand. Did you have anything?
I guess my first reaction, I was just surprised given the importance of recreation and the value of citizen well-being. I don't see that really strongly connecting in this current mission statement.
Yeah, good. Others? I don't know what Jared's seeing that I'm not, but I tried looking for the hands. Somehow I'm not getting them. Any other thoughts? I mean, if you don't have, we're going to work at this, but we thought we would get it up here early in this process and just get a sense from all of you, like how this was reading or not reading, so that we start drafting something with you. We have a place to start.
Jamie, I'll just add, I don't know the hand thing, but
it's okay.
There's two things that are missing from my perspective, and that is we want to be a leader.
Yeah.
The word leader is not in the mission statement anywhere as far as the city of Manhattan.
Yeah.
That bothers me a lot. And really back to what Elise said, even the protection of the public safety, that belongs to the county also as a primary mission.
Right.
Whether it be, except for the fire department, but EMS belongs to the county, the public health belongs to the county, the police belong to the county. So there's some things in there I think can be added from a public safety. I think they're important, but they're not primary missions for the city.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree. I mean, we need a thriving community economically, and I don't see that word. And it says enhance economic vitality. What bothers me is the enhance it. I want it to be thriving. I want it to be bigger. I want it. If we don't fix the economic, we're into goals. I got all that. But if we don't fix the economic development in this city, and it starts with the mission statement, and then 15, 20 rest of the years that you had there are a problem.
No, thanks, Phil. And anything you or Mike have to say about missions, I'm going to listen. Josh, is that a new hand or is that an old hand?
That's a new hand. I just had a question for Jared. How do you use this mission statement? How often do you see this, and how do you interpret it? And
no,
I guess
I'll
more
be
broadly,
honest.
city staff.
I'll be honest. We don't use it to the extent that I would like, or that I think others in the organization would like. Someone earlier, I can't remember, but they mentioned how the missions. Daphne mentioned how the mission makes you feel, and as an employee, we have the mission statement. We don't really champion it. I guess it's not something that's kind of like we mentioned. It was one that was adopted a long time ago. We put it on our website, and it's in our news at the bottom of all our news releases. But that was one of the reasons that our city staff was pushing for a strategic plan to regenerate that vision, to regenerate that mission to something that's more adequate with the time that we're in now, and so we could create that new charge. And kind of that mission statement really does mean a lot of things to employees when it's used in the right way. So we're hoping to see that possibly change during this process.
Right. Yeah, this sort of emotional connection to the statement, I'm really intrigued by, that it's not just a mechanical sort of thing, but it's something that, I don't know how many of you are football fans. I don't know how many of you are Notre Dame football fans, but if you are, you've probably seen that when the players leave the locker room to go to the field, there's a sign that they'll jump up and touch that says, play like a champion today. Now, I don't really see Jared jumping up and tapping the sign every day, but the idea that you would see something and connect it when you come into, City Hall, I think it's a worthy thing for us to try to achieve.
Yeah, we did have our first staff technical committee meeting the other day with Jamie, Sarah, and Cyril, and like you all, our staff kind of had an opportunity to look at this mission statement, and there was a lot of similar statements that you all have made that our city staff was saying the same thing. So hopefully at the end of the process, we do have this new mission statement plastered all over the walls and get a look at it every day, and it helps, regenerate our employees to look at the mission and look at our strategic plan and what's guiding it.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Any other comments on this? Okay, so we're gonna go to the next part of this. So before you start reading this, just let me say that these are values for local government. They're not community-wide values, but these would be, in tandem with the mission statement, for the staff and the elected and appointed officials. This is the values that, would go from the government, not the community. So this is a series of values that exist. Again, we discussed these with the staff technical committee last week, but this idea that from a values, from a code of ethics standpoint, is this notion about being transparent, having integrity, being focused on quality, being good stewards, and being fair and equitable in the work. So these are all the things that if you work for the city of Manhattan, that have this vision and a mission to deliver the vision, this is how you are supposed to ethically behave. Anything strike you as, it doesn't belong, or something might be missing from these? Yeah, Thomas?
Responsiveness.
Responsiveness.
Yeah,
Good.
I don't see that anywhere here.
Yeah. Okay, good. Others?
Jamie, I would say, I think it's implied in this, but I also think it's important to see words, right? And I think accountability would be one I like to see somewhere in the code of ethics or in the values.
Okay, good. And I see Pat at the top. Thanks, Danny.
I don't see anything in here that talks about public service. I think as a person associated with the city, there's an element of public service in there, and you need to be aware that part of your job is serving the public.
So it's a value, that responsibility. Anything else, Pat? Is that good? Okay. Thomas, sure. Is this a new hand? No. Kara, why don't you go ahead here?
I think accessible needs to be a value. Staff is accessible, appointeds are accessible, electeds are accessible, services are accessible.
Good. That's good. Other questions, or any, if you something you think doesn't belong, you can certainly comment on that. Yeah, Mike.
I get myself unmuted here. Yeah, I don't see anything about constant improvement.
Okay, good.
Getting better.
That's good. All right. Others? Mike, is that a new hand or that's the old hand? Okay. All right. We don't need to beat these up tonight, but we wanted to get a check. I see Dustin here.
I was just thinking like forward thinking, proactive, progressive, things like that aren't mentioned.
Okay. Yeah, there are word choices that I think seem to make a difference about the energy that you bring to the. I mean, these things are all good to do, but most of them sort of feel like, you know, the basic, I promise not to keep using football analogies, but they seem like basic blocking and tackling as opposed to more aspirational or energized. But I appreciate those words, Dustin. Josh, do you have something?
Yeah, I guess right in line with what you just said, none of these feel particularly risky. I mean, I think about like organizational values being things that you hire. Oh, sorry, my dog's barking. That you hire and fire on, and like none of these. There's no risk in any of this, and
Yeah.
I mean, like integrity is adherence to a strict moral or ethical code.
Yeah.
You know, whatever that might be. So maybe
Yeah.
some more skin in the game on these would be nice.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion. Perhaps maybe use terms of representing or display.
Okay. Could someone tell me, I don't know, the sort of persona of Manhattan, you know, like, I'm just guessing that this is generally a humble kind of crowd, you know, just kind of do the workman kind of thing. Anybody try to articulate what they think sort of the persona of Manhattan is? Are you bullies, nice guys, competitive, you know, like, I'm telling you, like, we worked for a large city in the Midwest, and the mayor was, you know, he really wanted the community to be more prideful and more emotionally energized about who we were. And his word over and over was swagger. We have to get our swagger on here, you know? So I don't know, like some of the things like that Josh was just saying about, like, there could be more energy to this, you know, how does it relate to the larger sort of feeling about who Manhattan is? And maybe I'm grasping for something, and if you don't respond, then that will tell me that's the case. Dustin, did you have something there? And then Daphne? Okay, that's an old hand for Dustin.
I mean, I don't mind jumping in here and saying, I think that maybe that identity is still kind of in the works. I think we often get just pretty much labeled as a college town. And I think that happens quite frequently. And then for the people that do actually live here, it's pretty broken out. There's a large population of very affluent retirees. There's a large population of 30-somethings who are really in love with the community and want to see where it will go. And there's also a large population of people who are struggling to thrive in Manhattan. And I just don't think that there is quite that identity yet. And I am a young person and I've only been here for a while, so I am completely fine with somebody telling me I'm wrong. So feel free to go ahead.
Yeah. I think that's important in terms of this work is, you know, because, you know, hopefully we've got a good representative group here, Daphne, and there's different points of view, you know, embedded in it. But, you know, we have to develop a strategic plan for the community that fits the community, right? And it could be, it doesn't necessarily have to fit it for the day. The reason that we talked about, you know, 10, 15, 20 years out is that you're trying to do something today that makes sure that this is a viable, desirable, vibrant, you know, place in the future. It's not always easy to do that, but I appreciate the comments. Anne, did you have something?
Yeah, I just don't think swagger's the issue. I think in some ways Manhattan has too much swagger and doesn't bring it. And that's part of the problem with us not being very welcoming to newcomers.
Okay. I just want to be clear, Anne, like, I'm not recommending swagger. It's not my prescription. I just an example, but I appreciate your comment, and I saw a number of head nods when you said that. Mike, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. I want to go back a little bit. I want to go back 30 years instead of 30 years forward to the time when we first moved here from Fort Leavenworth, and we thought Manhattan was magic. And the reason we thought it was magic was because at that time we came here and there was so much to do. There was the arts in the park, all that other good stuff. There was just a lot of activities. And I think that when we moved back here after I retired from the military, and I think some of that's gone now. That's just an observation.
So Matt, we should pursue that a little bit more, Mike. Figure that out. Lee, is this a new hand? Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit different from the question that's kind of on the screen about, these are values from the Code of Ethics. So I'm not, when you think about the ethics in general, I think these are important. If there's a weakness that I hear on these particular things from folks in the community, is there's a belief, right, wrong, or indifferent. The perception is that the city maybe doesn't adhere to these stated codes. I think there's a perception that, and Jared's doing a great job with this. So this is in no way a reflection on him. It's just the reality of what I hear, that there's a perception that all these decisions are made by city staff and it's just kind of a rubber stamp by the city commission. And so that would run counter to the stated ethics. Your question about identity, I do think we struggle with identity. To Daphne's point, I think part of it is we are a college town. That's one of the appealing things about it. But outside of that, I think about, it's a cute, clever, creative marketing of the little apple. But from my perspective, that gets us stuck in a little mindset in a lot of ways that actually I think we punch above our weight in many cases. I think we have a lot of things that make Manhattan a wonderful community, but we just accept that we're going to lose college graduates to Kansas City, Dallas, Austin, wherever the case may be. And we just say, oh, that it is what it is. Manhattan's a small community. And I don't think we should accept that. We went through the designing a city flag process, and I don't know if the individual that designed the flags on the call or not. I don't have any issue with the flag itself, but we ended up again with, an apple on a flag. And I feel like Manhattan is so much more than the little apple. And we continue to market ourselves as that. And I think that's where we struggle with an identity is that doesn't really reflect who we are, what makes this community great, or where we could go.
Yeah. Really thoughtful comments. Thanks, Lee. Mickey, can we go to you?
Yes, I just have to add in some comments here that I've always thought of Manhattan as being extremely friendly. Have lived within an hour of Manhattan my entire life. I've taught in Manhattan for 20 plus years and wanted very much to retire here. I grew up in a little town north of Manhattan, about 45 miles, and Manhattan was always the place to come. So I guess I feel more positive than some of these other comments about our community, and I just find it extremely friendly. And that was the one thing that as an individual and as a family made me want to live here.
Thanks, Mickey. Yeah, I guess as I was listening, maybe I wasn't listening well enough, wasn't picking up so much like negative, but the idea that there's more potential to be realized, to wring out of the community. Pat, and then Dominique.
Yeah, I just recently moved to Manhattan 4 years ago from a small community in central Kansas, where a lot of people are big K-State fans, and I'm not a K-State fan, but I do love Manhattan. I'm just not. But
how did you get on this committee? No,
there are so many wonderful things to do here. Like we have the linear trail, and the parks are wonderful, and people are walking. And you just feel healthier living here. You see people out walking, then you feel guilty. Like I'm not going to go home, sit on the couch. There's 700 people out walking around, and you could walk through the campus. You can go out to the lake and go kayaking and biking, and there's the arts in the park. I think Manhattan has a lot to offer, and coming here new, and then we fostered some kids. I didn't raise my kids here, but all of a sudden I had kids. The schools were awesome to work with. Boys and Girls Club was wonderful. We just have had really great experiences here in Manhattan. But on the other side of that, living in this Northview area, I also know that there's some big gaps for a lot of people here in this community. But I think overall, mean, you look at all the support and all the things that are happening. I feel like Manhattan does a pretty good job of at least attempting as individuals to take care of each other, and that's wonderful to see that.
Thanks, Dominique?
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. I think that values, provide a framework for all decision making. So I really appreciate this part of the discussion. I agree with a lot of the additions that I've heard people make, like accessibility, accountability. I think I would add a couple things to that. One, obviously, diversity is an important value to have, and certainly something that I've heard reflected amongst many of us in these conversations. The other thing I would say too is empowering, and maybe there's a better word to illustrate the point that I'll make. But individualization, and so really empowering individuals to take on that inner and outer work, I think is pretty critical. The other thing I was going to say was integration, but maybe it could be even termed connectedness. I mean, I was thinking about an example. So for instance, all things are connected and interdependent, so they can't exist independently or being meaningfully understood without reference to the whole. So an example would be, I've heard a lot of people talk about economic development, but I would really love to see even a mission that never contradicts one of those values. So for instance, if we say, well, we really need to focus on economic development, as an example, that should never undermine, for instance, the non-built environment, if that makes sense. So having connectedness or integration as a value, so that we make sure that when planning and decision making is happening, that we're considering things holistically, and understanding their independence, and we're not undermining or harming one part of a mission for the other, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense to me, Dominique, and I think that is a really good lens to as we're developing content, whether it's vision, mission, values, goals, outcomes, is what's the interrelated impact of these. So I appreciate the comment. Fanny, you have your hand up.
Yes. I often get asked, how did my family find their way to a place like Manhattan, Kansas? My parents are Chinese immigrants, and how did we find ourselves from the Big Apple to the Little Apple? And I think I know the reason is because of the fact that this community really does care about family, and that's a very strong value in my own personal family as well. I think the other thing about family, though, and I know that in recent years we've had to have really tough conversations within our own family, and that's what I would like to see us have more of, are those honest, candid, tough conversations to move us forward. I think I was raised here, and I've seen this community grow right before my eyes. I mean, for those of you who live here, you know that if you've lived here since early 2000s, Target was grass, and now it's completely built up, right? We used to have Steel Supply, and now it's Hy-Vee. And so at the age of 25, I've been able to see how this community has come together. But as this committee name says, Crossroads, that's where we are at right now. We're at a crossroads of trying to figure out what is our identity. How do we create a culture that is influenced by a transient population, but is still very much embraced by local residents? And so I'm excited to be here, and I understand Lee's point about branding ourselves as a Little Apple. But the way I see it, having studied in the Big Apple and now returned back to the Little Apple, is that that we have big city dreams, big city ideas, while preserving that small community vibe that I desperately missed when I was studying in New York City.
Thanks, Danny. Stacia, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add on to that. Again, I've only lived here for a year and a half, so it is a student's perspective, but I've been coming here since I was a baby. And I remember Manhattan when it was really little, and I've seen how much it's grown, and I really appreciated that. But I have to agree with the whole Little Apple thing. It's one of the really big draws was it not being a huge city. And like the amount of safety I feel when I'm in Manhattan is something I think is really, really special. And I think it's such a great, for a student's perspective, I think it's such a great transition. It's a great place to live on your own. It's a very safe place. It's a very welcoming place. And I've loved seeing the growth, and I want to continue to grow. And I think there's so much potential here. But I also think it's awesome that we do have that kind of Little Apple nickname, that very family-centered place. And it's just such a great place to learn how to live on your own. And I think that's something that is kind of about our culture that you were asking about a little bit earlier, but that's just kind of my opinion on it.
Thanks, Stacia. I appreciate that. Okay, so Sarah, if you could pull down the screen.
Yes, Jessica, did you have something?
Yeah, I do. So I'm not from here, wasn't raised here, that kind of thing. I do like it here. I've grown to like it here. But what I would say is, and I don't know how the city can make this a part of them, but when I think of family, but then wanting to make a place welcoming, you're asking the family to open up to strangers. And that's your barbecues with your cousins and your people, inviting somebody into your space, and who's really going to take the time to do that. So you kind of feel just out here if you don't have somebody that you're with. And so I've gone through a cycle of friends who were single, who, you don't have anybody, so if we're going to say we want to be a welcoming, hospitable space, then whose responsibility is that? Because being a small town with a family focus, you stick to your family and you don't really open up unless somebody introduced you to the family and welcomed you in. So that's a piece that is a challenge for people to say, can I stay here if I don't have anybody? And I have gotten accustomed to understanding the love that people have, or the desire to want to move back to Manhattan or things like that. But I'm like, that's not my reality. It's not that people don't say that it's a bad place, but it's not always safe, and the stuff that's happening is not always fun, or it's not focused on, a variety of different experiences that people would like to see. And that doesn't have anything to do with, race, ethnicity. It's just in interest, so it kind of, you feel like you should just be quiet because so many people say that it's such a great place that you don't want to be that person. But then you suffer in silence, and then you just move, or you just, disappear. And then people say, well, why can't we keep? Well, why can't we attract? And it's just like, well, it's really kind of a very limited aspect of what's fun or attracting with a closed family structure.
Thanks for sharing that, Jessica, and I apologize for missing you there. I just missed your hand, but thank goodness Jared got me covered. I really appreciate, for this part of the discussion and the meeting tonight, like the sharing, the thoughtfulness, the candor. There clearly is, terrific alignment on some things, and maybe there are areas where there's not yet, but not anything that we can't work through. So I appreciate the spirit, and I think as we go through this process and get more specific, I hope the spirit of togetherness continues, and the respect for different points of view and different lived experiences, as it relates to Manhattan. I've learned a lot tonight. I know that I could speak for Sarah and Cyril. They've also learned a lot tonight as well. And our job, we're like a big processor of data points and information insights. So we will be trying to make some sense of this tonight. There was one item we were going to introduce, but given that there's just 15 minutes left and a couple of other important items to wrap up, we wanted to just sort of, check in with you on like the most important outcomes of the process. some of what you've shared about values and mission and vision actually are getting at outcomes. And so what I would ask you is, in the next few days, if there's, maybe just 3 of like the most important outcomes that you can think of that either are different or reinforce something like that. If you would just drop a quick email, it doesn't have to be like long paragraphs. It can be like 3 simple bullets about, based on what and experience, like, and understand about this process, what might be like the three top income, the 3 outcomes. They can be simply expressed, but outcomes. It's different than the mission, it's different than values, but it's actually outcomes. And think about outcomes as, how would you know that something happened? It could be a project, it could be, a program or something. But anyway, these are not, we're not committing you forevermore in your priorities for this process, but maybe just to give us a sense of what's really at the front of your mind would be really helpful. So 3 outcomes simply expressed in bullets, and maybe by Monday, end of the day, if you'd like to do that, just to Jared. So thank you. And it looks like Caleb has reinforcements in his Zoom window. We're glad to see that. That's the future right there, Manhattan right there. All right, Sarah?
Yes. I'm gonna go back here. So thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everyone. That was great to hear all of your ideas and thoughts and insight. So a few wrap up things here so we can get you out of here on time. We do have tentatively set the next meeting dates. We'll send these out. Jared will send out Zoom links and holds on your calendars, but we're targeting April 15th, May 27th, and June 17th, same sort of time in the evening. And we mentioned this before, but the homework now coming out of this meeting is really to spread the word about this first round of engagement, reach out to your networks, track your efforts using the tracking form. And then we also thought it'd be fun, and Dustin and Fanny are going to kick us off with this as co-chairs. We're going to ask them to do like the first one, but make a little video just on your phone. Just take a video of yourself inviting people into this process. Why are you excited to participate? And inviting others in to come be a part of this first round of engagement, attend a virtual meeting or whatnot. So we'd love to collect these and like use them on social media and put them on the website. So if you're comfortable, we've done this before with committees and it's been a really great project. And again, it just takes your iPhone or your smartphone to just do a quick, this is like a 10 or 15 second, little blip just saying, who you are and why you're excited to be part of this process and inviting your fellow neighbors to get involved. So if you're interested in that, I would love for you to do a little clip and then send it, to Jared, and we'll use them. And Dustin and Fanny are going to kind of kick us off, and we'll get those out and help promote the effort. And then, as Jamie mentioned, a little additional homework to think about the outcome. So as you're thinking over, the weekend and thinking about what you'd like to see come out of this process, drop, the 3 most important outcomes to you, drop them in an email, send them to Jared. He'll make sure we get them, and we'll have more conversations about that in future meetings, but that would be also another homework assignment. And then the third thing is we will be following up with some follow-up material, but we really do want your assistance with the first round of engagement. And depending on, and hopefully we have a lot of people signing up for our virtual meetings, but depending on how many people we have signed up, we would love to have some of you all be available to help with the meetings and host a small group discussion during a virtual meeting. And we can go over what that means, but it's pretty simple. When we put into breakout rooms, you would be assigned a group of, 8 or 10 folks, and it's really just getting them launched, repeat the question, invite them to discuss, and take the notes. It's really just, someone to kind of be in the small group with them and listen and take those notes for us. So if you'd be willing to do that, that would be great. We're going to send out a Survey Monkey to gather which dates you might be able to be available for that. And then on the flip side, if there's a meeting time that you want to participate in as a community member, you should feel free to do that as well. And the other thing we want to ask your help with is hosting one of these small groups, right? So either in person or virtual, whatever your comfort level is, utilizing the meeting in a box. So we'll put all the materials you need together. and we can send it out digitally and have made copies available through Jared if you need printed copies. But again, just it'll have a script, it'll have all the forms, surveys you need, people can fill it out. But just hosting a small group, really thinking about those all those different groups that you all committed to outreaching to and inviting them into the process. Those could also be groups that you could do this meeting in a box with as well. And also those hard to reach groups. Again, we talked last meeting about going to people, and not always asking everyone to sort of come to us. And so some folks, it's just going to be hard for them to come. So if there's a way to go to them with a meeting in a box approach, that's what we would be asking you to do. So we are going to send a simple survey monkey out after this meeting as part of our wrap up email to you all. That'll just gather some of your, it'll ask you what your availability is to help with the meetings, ask if you could, help us with the meeting in a box, and just get some information on that. And then we'll have a little bit more, those folks that are going to be helping us, we'll do a little orientation with you all at some point closer to the meetings. But it should be a fun thing to kind of get to know some of your neighbors and help us with this process and really be those ambassadors for the process. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have one quick question.
Yes, Mike.
This is Mike. My question is, on the video, you mentioned 15 seconds. What is the outer limit of that?
Well, I think I wouldn't want to go too long past maybe 20 or 30 seconds, because we're trying to put these out on social media and kind of quick, people's attention spans are very short these days. So something quick, jazzy, get people's attention. But yeah, I think no more than, 20, 25, that'd be good.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? I think we're right to our end here. And Jared will be sending out a follow-up email with some, with the PowerPoint, the SurveyMonkey link. We're working on that visual roster. If you haven't sent your bio or headshot in, please do that so we can get that put together for you all, just as a reference, when we're having these meetings. So we'll get that out to you as soon as we can get that pulled together as well. Anything else, Jared or Fanny or Dustin, you'd like to say before we close out the group?
I'll just mention a couple things again. If you can come by City Hall and grab these printouts, if you'd like some to hand out to groups that you're familiar with, please do. I'll have those. And then I think maybe just to reiterate the importance of the next couple weeks, there's a lot of people I think who are excited about this strategic plan. All of you are probably really excited, which is why you joined the committee. But I think that the success of this process is going to hinder a lot on how many people we can reach, how much of the community is involved, getting in front of as many people as possible. And we're going to do our part to hit all the mediums that we can. I'm working with our PIO, Vivian Uccello, to not only do the regular social media posts and insider newsletters, but we're working on getting ad space out there on K-Man and some of the suggestions that you all had, like Pandora and YouTube, or hitting the Collegian and things like that. But Jamie said it really well the other day, that the way that most people engage in these processes because someone they trusted told them and recommended them that they should get involved in this process. So we do it all the time. We're posting stuff, asking people to get out and join things, but until someone that they know and they trust comes and tells them, hey, this is an important process, and we think we're trying to get as many people involved as possible, then I would encourage you to do that. That's where they take that leap to maybe do something they're not necessarily comfortable doing and providing that feedback. So any way that you all can take the materials that we've provided, take the information that's on the website, push that out to people close to you, groups that you're associated with, is going to make this project successful. So I appreciate the task ahead that you all are undertaking, and hopefully it turns out well.
One thing I like to say is thank you all so much for making this a safe space to have a conversation like this, and also to challenge each other to be better, to open the way we think about things. I really appreciate what Dr. Jessica Elmore said after what I had said about family. And, you know, the way I see family is very different. And I don't know what it's like to be an outsider of Manhattan, Kansas, because I was raised there. And yes, I left, but I came back. And so, you know, this is, you know, I'm very honored to be amongst this group. And I want you all to know that I'm here to support all of you. And that I am just really grateful to be part of this committee and part of this community.
Well, great. Thank you all so much. Appreciate your time tonight. Jared will be in touch. Pick up rat cards, spread the word. Let's get as many people as we can signed up for our virtual meetings and engaging online. And if you need anything from us, let us know.